Before we begin these 4 quick things, first of all, gosh, I had a lovely birthday celebration. It was sweet to have family and friends and so many parishioners. Everybody just did a beautiful job. We just had the most amazing staff, and it was really fun. And we got to make fun of my brother Dennis, who deserved it and who loved it. 2, this weekend begins Vocations Week. It's a reminder that we each have a place on this planet in our time, and that God wants to use us for good. And we certainly pray for people who are married, or discerning marriage, that beautiful but difficult calling. The importance of dedicated singles with good hearts. And people to consider religious life, be a priest brother or a priest. I would offer this encouragement. If you know anybody that might be a young man who would be a good priest, talk to him about it. I would tell you, like any good life, good vocation, good calling, it's not easy if you care, but it's so worth it. I'm old enough to look back in my life and be so thankful to God I've been a priest. And 3, for All Souls, we had a beautiful Mass of remembrance where we prayed for our loved ones who've gone before us in death. If you went to our Facebook page, you could watch the homily and the beautiful little ceremony with our Book of Remembrance, or go to our webpage, on the home page of the website, the live stream, I think. You could find the entire Mass there. And finally, before we start, again, let's just keep holding in our hearts all the people suffering so mightily right now. In Ukraine and in the Mideast, it's just heartbreaking. And pray that our leaders will find their way to true justice and to lasting peace. And for all those for whom these days are just so incredibly horrific, we hold them in our hearts. Thanks for joining. Here's the homily. Have you ever been to a reception or an event which had a dance and just observed for a while what happens on the dance floor? If you ever did that, you probably noticed that, well, clearly, no one dances the same way. Some people seem to have a natural sense of rhythm, some don't. Some are limber and energetic, and some don't move as much. Some dance with abandon and self-confidence, as if not thinking about themselves at all. And others, if they finally get out there, you can just tell they feel so self-conscious. Please don't let anybody be looking at me right now as I'm dancing. In all of those ways and others, the dance floor seems to be a microcosm of all of life. Additionally, you know how sometimes on the dance floor the tempo changes? So it does with life. And maybe you've noticed that on the dance floor, just as there are some people laughing and just truly enjoy themselves, there are other people dancing with tears in their eyes. I've noticed that more often if it would be a wedding reception where there had been some heartache, or even sometimes just my child has grown up goodbye feeling. There are many similarities between the dance floor and the dance of life. There is, however, this significant difference. While it is hard or almost seemingly impossible to coax some people out onto the dance floor, when it comes to the dance of life, for all followers of Jesus, we're not allowed to sit it out. We've all got to get out on the dance floor. Two things about that for us, and particularly in light of this gospel today. First, sometimes we have to let ourselves be led. You know, a good dancer will not only lead, but will respond to the moves of his or her dance partner and let themselves be led. It's the image I'm using, the metaphor I'm using for the description we get of the Pharisees again. As Jesus talks in one level about the dance of the Pharisees, some of those who were really leaders in the way of religion, these religious leaders missed some of the key elements of the dance of life. Oh, they were quite excited to lead, but their dance pretty much ignored the dance partner. They did not make sure there was room on the dance floor for everyone, which is the opposite of what Jesus did and the opposite of what he calls us to do. And their dance was all about them, really. It was more of a strut. Look at me, their moves seemed to suggest. No, a true leader has to be willing to be led. In life, I don't trust any religious leader, coach, politician, or leader of any sort who does not also let himself or herself be led. You know, without the humility to be led, a person doesn't really have what it takes to be a true leader. I mean, even Jesus himself was a man of prayer who learned and listened for what God had for him, and who listened and learned sometimes through the people he met along the way. So first, in the dance of life, we all have to sometimes let ourselves be led. And secondly, sometimes in the dance of life, we have to be willing to be the one who leads. My favorite leaders are those who are kind of at first reluctant to lead, but they do so because it's what's needed, right? The folks who too much want to be leaders, they make me nervous. You know, the young priests that just want to be a bishop, well, they scare me. The people who can't wait for some position of power, I think are kind of dangerous. Again, my favorite leaders are those who do what is needed, not because they wanted it, but simply because they were available for what was needed for love. At one point or another, that's each of us. Sometimes it will be your turn to lead. A little bit about the role of being a leader. A true leader will tell you it's not always fun to have that role. I mean, if you're a good leader, there certainly are times where it's just meaningful and blessed, and you know ultimately that deep down it's worth it. But it's also true that, one, the responsibility of leadership is itself often scary. Two, everyone will see what you already know, that you're not perfect. And three, some people will publicly take unfair pot shots at you. Well, there's stuff that you know about that situation that you're not allowed to say to defend yourself because it's confidential. There just is a loneliness to leadership. Sometimes there is. And yet, it will sometimes be your turn to lead. May each of us listen for that call. and step forward to do what is needed. So, again, in the great dance of life, whether we are leading or following, sometimes the tempo will change. Sometimes we will dance with joy and abandon. At other times we have to dance with tears in our eyes. And always we've got to listen to that inner music, right? Because sometimes we will need to be willing to be led, sometimes to lead, and usually a bit of both at the same time. So maybe the next time you or I are at a dance, we do well to just notice how similar the dynamics on that dance floor are to the dance of life. Except that we remember this difference. In the great dance of life, as followers of Jesus, we can't sit it out.